Welcome to the Ashby Room. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Ashish Iyer, the Director of Product Management at Qualcomm, focused on the next generation of automotive 5G chipsets. Ashish graduated from Georgia Tech in electrical and electronics engineering and has spent the last 13 years of his career at Qualcomm. In this episode, we talk about Ashish's decision to leave India for graduate school and his experience with assimilating upon arriving in the United States. We also discuss his transition from engineering to product management and dive into what makes a good product manager at a technology company. Without further ado, please enjoy this pleasant conversation with Ashish. The big news, you got promoted recently.
Yes.
You spent most of your career at Qualcomm, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
How many years?
So I've started working in Qualcomm from like 2010. So the first decade of it was kind of in engineering, did various roles in engineering. And then I moved into a product role in like 2020. And then it's been 3 years in the product management role.
So 10 years engineering,
Yeah.
Product management, and then now you're director of product management at Qualcomm. And I think when we saw it, I don't know, I always thought you had a bit of a youthful energy. So I was like, whoa, Ashish, what are you doing? And then I didn't realize your whole career you'd spent in semiconductor,
Yes.
Qualcomm. I spent a little bit of time there. Can you talk about the industry a little bit, working there and working with maybe partner companies?
Yeah. So I think when I started off in Qualcomm, I was more like an engineer. I was working on 4G, 5G chip design. And I was in what we call as the modem system team. So we kind of designed the whole system on communication. And I think the way it kind of works for us is the culture in the company is really good. Like people try to help each other out. And as a newbie, I felt like really welcomed in the company. And that was an area that I really wanted to work on and focus because I think it also tied to a larger cause of like connecting people at the time with, technology.
Is Qualcomm itself very old, or how long has
Yes, so
been?
Qualcomm has been there from like 1995, 96, I would say. So they kind of did like the 2G stuff
Fairly
first.
new, though.
Yeah.
It's not old.
Not that old, yeah, but like I would say like 30 years overall. And so I really liked that part of Qualcomm. And then working in Qualcomm gave me access to a lot of information I would not have otherwise. And so like patents or trying to meet with innovative people out there, that really kind of opened up a lot of doors. So the engineering function was really good from that perspective. And then we were on a path where we innovate new stuff. So that was encouraged. And that kind of helps a lot of us kind of, just get an out, I would say, right? So we don't need to stick to a particular pattern, do something new every few years. And that's kind of how the engineering function works there.
What is the tagline mission of Qualcomm?
So it's quality communications. Mm-hmm. That's how it started. So they started with like the old 2G phones where you could just barely place a call. And then you had these 3G stuff where you could start texting people and then you could send maybe short clips. And then 4G, when I started working, was what we were developing for the first time. So you can think of it like that's the first time we could see YouTube on a phone. You could see Netflix on a phone. I mean, though that was like really foundational and it changed the way people viewed smartphones and all of that. So, and pretty much like all the iPhones or the Samsungs in the world that you see, I mean, it's kind of powered by our technology from that perspective. And that really helped enable all those use cases, I would say.
How's your day-to-day changed now that you're in a director role?
Yeah, so I would say that on the product side, it was quite different from the engineering way of working, I would say. So earlier, I was leading like the 5G chipsets, but on the automotive side. Now my portfolio has expanded slightly. So the chipset was more like on the hardware side, I would say. But right now, we are creating a software product that will function on top of the hardware. And that's the expansion in the portfolio that I'm currently going through. And right now, I'm responsible for figuring out designing that software product, the go-to-market strategy, and trying to figure out how to create revenue from that whole product. So that's the portion of expansion in the portfolio that I'll be handling now.
That's awesome. And we've got a handful of semiconductor in our class. Amelia with NVIDIA, Mike with Intel. I think Bala is at Intel as well,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So it's like a pretty well-represented industry. Was that what you expected when you came into this MBA program, or did you think it'd be kind of a rare industry to represent?
I always felt that there'll be someone from NVIDIA for some reason. I kind of just felt that.
Yeah.
But I felt that I feel that it's fairly represented. It was surprising to me that we are 4 of us for sure. I expected maybe me and one more, maybe 2, and I expected people more from like Google or Apple, But so yeah, it was. I felt it's fairly okay, and I think looking at where AI is right now, that's why I expected some NVIDIA crowd as well.
Right. So, definitely. Like we just sat through marketing. He's like, we're actually the cohort of AI.
Exactly.
I was like, wow, I think this is a moment I'm gonna have to remember. Like,
Can we talk a little bit about today? What did you think about the classes? Anything that stood out? Even just a general overview for anybody listening.
Yeah. So I think we have finance, we have macroeconomics, and we have marketing. And I think even before the block, I kind of knew that marketing was the one that I would more closely relate to. In some sense, that's what I'm using on my job right now. I think that's what I'm trying to put in action. So whatever I learn here, whatever I'm hearing here, it kind of just resonates with me. Macroeconomics, I feel that the subject is a little abstract from what I know. But I do know that even in my company, when we are making investment choices, those decisions are abstract to an extent. So I get the sense that it's difficult to make those decisions, and that's how macro kind of connects to it. And you need to know which company you invest in, what the climate is there before you do it. So maybe that's the nature of the course. I think I just have to see through it. Finance is something I feel like it's a language. I think I need to know. And I feel like I think it's giving a good background on, when people come, say the finance team comes to me with certain statements or certain expectations. I really like the way the course is structured so we can use that in day-to-day business. Yeah.
I didn't know what to expect from finance, having just taken a finance course, financial accounting course right before, right?
Yeah.
I was like, okay, how much different can this be? But it does seem like this course is going to be a little more on how do you make money? Like, what do you do with your money?
I think, so it seemed to me more like a decision-making course.
Yeah.
So the financial accounting in the last block was more like how do you assess a company's health and kind of go historical. And this is more like, okay, what do you do with a future-looking decision? So,
Do you have a favorite, Julian, from you?
I really enjoyed marketing. I think everybody did. That was towards the end of the day too. I think he came in and had a very interesting, polished presentation, and kind of really acknowledged that learning is changing, and that we're going to have to be very literate in AI. And I think the one quote someone mentioned to me afterwards that our marketing professor said is that you maybe won't be replaced with AI directly, but you'll be replaced with a person who knows how to use AI better than you do. So I thought that was really thought-provoking. And also, I don't think I do anything really related to marketing. And I was like, I'm going to be a fish out of water here. And now I'm like, oh, maybe I should think about marketing. But it was really engaging. I think, so this is term 2, so we're still in our core courses. So we don't get to choose any of these. And so it's kind of just you go in and, hope that there's something you can take away and apply.
Yeah,
and I really like the fact that he picked AI and asked us to use ChatGPT in class, and he's really wanting us to adopt it. So that's new, and I think it's a breath of fresh air, and I think we need it. So
I felt the same way when he said, "Let's spend a few minutes talking about ChatGPT," and I was like, "Oh, this is going to be about plagiarism."
Yeah,
but it wasn't. It was about you will start your draft. Everything you do, start here, and just work off of it. Fix what's wrong. Identify what's wrong. But you should not be doing things just for the exercise of it. Yeah. It really struck me when he was like, before you start learning a discipline in traditional academia, you spend the first, half the semester learning about the history of the field, right? And it reminded me of robotics. It's like I spent the first half of a semester learning inverse kinematics. It's just linear algebra to calculate joint position, tool position. And at the halfway point, they're like, okay, now whenever you use a robot in the industry, all that is done. You just program waypoints, paths. And it was like, oh, wait, so what did we have to do that for? I get you have to understand the concepts, but a lot of it was very inefficient, I'd say.
Oh, yeah.
So very refreshing to see this professor adopt new techniques.
Oh yeah.
I
for sure.
I like the new technique. I think we should be using AI to our advantage and learning how to use it. But something that I think was also a moment of pause was just like AI is not always going to be right. And so if you don't know where to look for the things that could be an error, then you could be potentially taking like wrong information.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to be really careful about how you do apply it.
Yeah, and the fact that it makes stuff up, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean that was I hadn't looked at it at that level, but now I now that he's consciously told us, I'm like, okay, this makes sense.
It won't be right, but
Yeah.
it'll sound very good.
Exactly,
And it's a
exactly.
little deceiving. It can be deceiving, and it's just rhetoric the way it is.
And I like the fact that we can experiment it during this course,
Yeah.
and then we can actually use it. Actually,
Yeah. Let's do a gear shift. Let's go back to as far back as you want, like where you were born, what your family upbringing was like, to maybe like college and what brought you to the U.S.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I was born and brought up in Bombay, which is now called Mumbai. And I think even growing up, I remember way back till I was like in the third grade, my father was an engineer. So I always liked the engineering discipline a little bit. I used to play around with like the tape recorders, the VCD players at the time. And I just remember like, just tinkering with it all day. And we would get samples at home and I would just constantly fiddle with them because that was kind of like a toy to me. And I kind of just grew up doing that. And I think, so engineering was more like something that I was genuinely interested in. And in India at the time, you could only be an engineer or a doctor, pretty much. So that's how the social construct was set. But I don't think so it worked for a lot of people, but it worked for me because I got the push I needed to get into engineering because of all of that. And I always liked the maths and the science courses in general. So I had a general affinity, so to say, for that. And even when we did engineering, so we had this electronics and telecommunication. These were like the two branches, essentially. And telecommunication was something...
In high school or college?
In undergrad.
In undergrad.
So the way it works is we gave like a common exam, pretty much like a SAT out here.
Yeah.
And then you pick your engineering major. Though in India, the undergrad is a little bit rigid. Once you choose a discipline, you just got to commit to it. So it's hard to switch between, say, computer science and electronics or electrical halfway through engineering. So it's kind of a little harder, not impossible. But I was kind of set on electronics and telecommunication. So, and I kind of started that. And I hadn't thought about coming to the US till like maybe the third year in engineering. So that's when I really started figuring out what can I do better with my life in general. And
Is that third year of school or third year into work?
Third year into undergrad.
Undergrad.
Yeah, so third year into undergrad, just like 2 years before the final graduation, they're like, okay, what do we do next? I can take a job in India or I can apply for a master's program out here. And the overwhelming feedback I got from everyone was just apply for the master's out here because the education level in the US is still significantly better in terms of, what you get to experience. And so that's how I got admitted to master's in Georgia Tech.
Nice.
And then I kind of started out there. And then, I mean, the school was amazing. I mean, in India, the engineering schools are good, but I think here the amount of exposure you get in terms of the different disciplines within Georgia Tech was like amazing. And there were a lot of firsts. I think I learned cooking as a part of coming to the US, cleaning, which I had never done in India. So I think all that was kind of a fun experience. And then rest is history from that.
How did you choose Georgia Tech? Was it like, can you talk about the application and then moving here? Like,
I've also heard Georgia Tech described as like the MIT of the South. So it is a very good engineering school.
Oh, yeah.
So I think, so I had University of Minnesota, Twin Cities, University of Maryland, Purdue and Georgia Tech. I think these were like some of the things I was trying for. MIT I felt was a little out of my league at the time, so I didn't try for it. But I was also trying for Berkeley and Stanford for the master's program. And it just so happened that I had a couple of close friends who went to Georgia Tech before. And they gave me like really good reviews about Georgia Tech. And they were also in Georgia at the time, so they could kind of help me out when I came here. So that was one of the portion. And then in terms of the application process itself. In India, you have like these kind of, I should say, coaches who kind of help you or guide you. So I was lucky enough to get a couple of good coaches who kind of guided me through the whole application process. It wasn't the most easiest, I would say, because we had never written an SOP in my life before. That was the first time I was kind of really writing a serious one. And
You had to write an SOP, for the application?
For the application.
Oh.
So it's like a SOP, a couple of essays, and we had never done that stuff before. So it was kind of good to, just look into what that is and how do you make yourself stand out, because pretty much everyone else is applying in the same way like you are. So it was kind of good. A good experience.
So sort of like a personal story, but my cousin went to Georgia Tech, and I think she majored in, it was like microfiber technology, like the kind that they use for like Under Armour. I had never heard of this as like a major degree before. She went on to like work at Mercedes, and I thought that was a really interesting career path. So did they have like similar specialties that you could focus on?
So they had like computer science, core computer science. Then they had mechanical. They had an electrical and computer engineering. So I ended up picking electrical and computer engineering because that was kind of closest. And in that, the way it would work is I chose communication subjects like networking and communication, and that would kind of be my major, essentially.
Nice.
So the first year is similar to Haas. It's like you do the core courses, and then the second year is pretty much all electives. And they have amazing professors who, kind of really guide you through how to, and they kind of put you in touch with startups in the local scene. So you kind of actually get to work with them even unofficially to see what you're learning is actually practical. It's not just, learning for the books kind of a thing. So.
Did you do any internships? I think that's pretty big there also.
Oh, yeah. So I did, I kind of worked with a couple of professors on campus just to create like some local projects out there. And then my internship, the actual internship was with Qualcomm again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I kind of
nice.
Was like, Qualcomm was my dream company at the time. So I was like really, I had a job offer from Apple and Qualcomm, and I was like, no, I'll go for Qualcomm.
That's cool.
Oh, everything sounds really positive. It sounds like everything was just shiny and new, and you did so well, and everybody was so supportive. But what were some of the challenges that you faced?
Yeah, so I would say that in terms of at least coming from India, I think one of the first challenges I really faced was finances, because coming to the US is not cheap, and then for a master's program, a new country, I think it's kind of a mix of a lot of that. That was quite challenging to figure out how to actually get it into place. Luckily for us, there is a lot of friends who have done it in the past, so at least someone, and you talk to them and you figure out. And then, of course, we all had to take a loan. And so there were financial portions of it. And just kind of getting to the US, first time moving to a new country, and absolutely have done nothing before in your life. Because in India, we are spoiled, very frankly, like mom, dad, whoever, they do everything, right?
Yeah.
And we have like a lot of domestic help. So you don't really do anything in India. So coming here, kind of adjusting to life here was kind of different. And I still remember the first class I attended. There was a student who opened like a Lace chips packet and was nicely munching away while the professor is talking. And I was like shocked. And I was like, man, that was like a culture shock for me. Because in India, you're supposed to be like respectful. You're not supposed to ask questions to the professor, just wait for him to complete. So a lot of that is like psychological, and kind of, the way you interact in a university setting was like completely different.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, you say that like your mom and dad kind of did everything for you, and I feel like I've heard that from other like Indian colleagues, but I feel like there's such a strong work ethic from everyone. Maybe not everyone, most people that I work with who have immigrated from India. Do you think that's like just part of the upbringing as well?
Yeah. I think we take our work pretty seriously, too seriously maybe sometimes. So I think it's a part of the upbringing that I think you can't give 90%, you have to give like 110% to what you kind of sign up to do, essentially. And it's a part of our upbringing, yeah. But at home, when you're at home and, it's a little different, relaxed, more casual setting, then you kind of take a seat back.
Yeah.
Well, I know now you are married and have 2 small kids, I think. When did that sort of happen in this whole process? Or was that later on after your master's?
Yeah, so the funny thing is, me and my wife, we we are from the same undergrad university, so we spent like 4 years out there. And we sat next to each other on the first day of class. So, not that we knew that anything would happen at the time, but looking back, it was just how it started off. And then I started knowing her more personally, I would say, in the second year of undergrad. That's when we became really good friends. And then it just kind of took off from there. And she's been like a pillar of support kind of all through. From there till now, and even in the Haas MBA program, and so it
So
kind
did
of
she
goes
come
back.
with you?
Yeah, so she came with me. So she did her masters in Duke.
Nice.
And then she works for KPMG now, and we have 2 kids, 6 years and 3 years. Both are boys at this point. And we always kind of wanted to, and after we had our first, we were like, oh my God, this is so much work.
Can't wait to have the second one. Yeah.
Like, do we really need our second one?
Now you need a girl, so.
Yeah, that's what my wife wanted. She wanted a girl. So, but eventually we were like, no, we absolutely need 2, and then we made up our mind to kind of go ahead.
How are you balancing all that now with the Haas?
Yeah, I have to say,
the Haas activity.
It is hard. It is hard. I will not sugarcoat it. So she's also in a role which is kind of quite demanding, I would say. And even my role is kind of customer facing. So there's a lot of times where, we have conflict for sure. Mm-hmm. But I think one thing's been very clear between us that, we kind of support each other through it. And she has my back. She understands why I'm doing it. And I think communication is the key between us. There are so many times that I have to jump on a call at last minute, or, I have some assignment due that, I completely forgot, or I need to do something. And with kids, there's a different dynamic. I mean, kids have their own schedule. Yeah. They don't really understand that you have an assignment due. Yeah. So she steps up, and I'm very grateful for that. And I think communication is the key. And we are trying to find ways by which we can spend quality time together. I think that's the key thing. I think that's what's getting eroded, I would say, in all of this. Like, because you have to take care of the kids, you have to do your office work. So we have to take time together. And that's something we are trying to do, be more intentional about, I think.
Did you go anywhere during break?
Oh, yeah. During this break, we had gone to Utah. So we kind of went 2 weeks. We have family there. And
you guys sent that cute picture, right? In the matching pajamas. That was so cute.
It was hard to find matching pajamas for all of us, but we found it. And it was a good break. Nice. Went to Utah, did a couple of weeks of skiing. Nice. Took my older son for skiing for the first time. He killed it. He's better than me now, so I need to catch up. And my wife joined in the fun. She had never skied before.
Oh, wow.
But I kind of pushed her, and now we are now like a ski family.
That's awesome.
So it's fun.
Well, you said your wife knows why you're doing the program now, right? But can you maybe, I guess, shifting a little bit, like tell us, you already have a master's, you actually already did your career pivot from engineering into product. So what are you hoping to get from the executive MBA?
Yeah, so I think for me, moving from engineering to product, it took some time in the sense that I had to try for maybe close to a year, talk to a lot of people. And then once I made the pivot, I wanted to actually test out if I like the business side of the world or not. I think that was my key thing. So I tried it out for 2 years. And then what I noticed was that no matter, even though I'm in the product side, I don't get exposed to all aspects of business. Mm-hmm. So I'm exposed to certain smaller aspects of business, but I wanted to develop a little broader view. So that's one. And then the other thing I felt is having some of this formal education kind of really gives me also a confidence to take more risks versus, trying to be a little bit more safe with my career pivots in the future. This will give me that formal education that I can lean hard on the business side, even though I may not know all the technical details of what I'm getting into. So right now with the engineering to product pivot, it was mainly a technical, I was the technical expert, so I could use that and I could learn the business skills. But now I can lean more harder on the business side. And I feel that the networking opportunity here, meeting with the cohort, that is just unparalleled. Mm-hmm. I mean, just the amount of discussions that we have, and it's just amazing. And I do know that it opens up doors, at a point. And especially when you're stuck, you kind of talk to people and it'll kind of help you out because they might have gone through a similar pivot in their career. So that is something I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, I had a similar pivot, such as you, engineering into product management, and my story was something like I met the director of product at my company at a I don't know, some party. So it's like a partners event. And I just started talking to him. Long story short, like he was like, "Oh yeah, well, we need a guy who knows the product, has been at the company, knows the industry." So I leaned into my technical expertise, used it for product development, right? And I honestly think that's, how like a lot of good product managers or engineers. I do believe that that's true because like a technology product can be so complex.
Yeah,
you need that baseline.
Yeah.
What was your motivation? Like, did you always know you wanted to go into product, or at what point did you have that drive?
So I think I was a hardcore engineer before. I really liked the job. I still like the life of an engineer sometimes, very frankly.
Hardcore engineer. Yeah. What are some characteristics of hardcore engineer?
So just
I just wanted to say it.
Just forget about the rest of the world.
Yeah.
They're just bullshit. you can solve it.
Eat, sleep on the table.
Yeah, you can solve it. So I kind of started off there, and I made a few engineering pivots first. Like I did the 4G side of stuff, then I did 5G for a bit, and then there was this automotive group that was getting formed. So I said, okay, I'll help on the engineering side, and I took like a leadership role there on the engineering automotive side. And then I felt, that I felt like I wasn't still reaching my potential. And since the automotive group was new, I was talking to a lot of product guys who were saying that, we need more people like you who know the product because we need to explain the value prop to our customers. And it's really hard to get the talent outside of Qualcomm because no one really knows the products as well as we do. And that kind of got me thinking. And it was a product manager who kind of reached out to me eventually saying, hey, why don't you apply for some of these? And
did you express interest first? Is that why you knew you?
Yeah. So I was getting interested in how they were doing things. And then I started helping them with like trade shows, like CES, the MWCs. And then I went to a couple of customer site visits because he will just pull me on for a technical call. Yeah. And he really liked the way I talked to a few customers. And he was like, you handle their questions well. And because he wasn't expecting that from the engineer essentially, right? So he kind of told, why don't you look at it seriously? And that's when I started looking at it. And I would say it was mainly internal networking that got me thinking about the role before I started thinking about it.
I think in a lot of software companies, the engineer is kind of the champion, and the pay band can go really high. And sometimes, at the same level, a product manager might be making less money, or usually is making less money. But Qualcomm, like some more traditional industries, it's the engineering has a pretty low cap, I think.
That's right. So in terms of, I would say that a product role is more respected. Yeah. In general, of course, you respect the engineers for what they build. Yeah. But the engineers always come to the product for direction. And you're right. I mean, even from a pay band perspective, the growth, the fact that I became director so fast in the product role, in engineering, it would take much, much longer. So I think even from a career trajectory standpoint, I think this kind of opens doors from that perspective. So,
it's awesome. Maybe let's focus a bit on the MBA and what you want to do after that. I know we kind of talked about it, with leaning more into a formal education. Do you have kind of a roadmap that you've laid out, or are you going to leave it kind of open to whatever opportunities come? Or has anything here that you've seen excited you already?
So I think a couple of things I would say, at least here, that have already excited me are there's the STEP program. And there are these I-Corp type opportunities.
What does the STEP stand for again?
So
Student Entrepreneurship Program.
Yeah. So it's mainly, I think, I've already started working with the cohort on a few ideas to figure out, how do we start taking it forward. And I think this gives a good platform to experiment. And I think if I was not in the program, I would have probably never done that because it takes a lot of effort and inertia to. So I feel that the vibe out here kind of just pushes you to do that. And I think I'm going to do that. That's one of the key things that I want to get out of it as well. I spoke to the CMG team once. They are pretty excellent. in terms of the advice they are offering.
Career management group,
The career management group. And what I noticed was there's a lot of people like me who were in a similar position. So the career management group is really helping out in terms of, what I can do next.
Yeah.
So I would say,
I've heard really good things about that group.
Good plug for this year. Who Edward and I work with closely in our roles as co-VP of careers.
Yeah.
I think one piece of feedback I did get though was like when you do meet with a CMG, having like a little bit of an idea about what you want is really helpful for them. When you just give them kind of like a little bit of direction, they can like really run with it and connect you with like all kinds of people. So
that's exactly, I think so. From a work perspective, I know exactly what I want to achieve and what the kind of risks that I want to take. So they said that they will hook me up with maybe other product managers in other companies who have done maybe similar things. And how do you go about navigating, the career ladder from out here? Because beyond this point, I feel that you have to take significant risk and have a payback before you can start progressing higher. And you may have to try a few times on failed projects before you can go ahead. So,
I would also plug. I was in the STEP program this year, and we won third place for a fintech product. We were open credit. It was like buy now, pay later. Data isn't accessible to traditional credit score. A traditional credit enterprise would use your credit score to assess risk for a loan, but they don't have access to buy now, pay later data. That's getting so all this being said, right, is we were doing product discovery, customer discovery, and trying to assess whether this is a big enough problem that people are paying for. And we did a 10-week kind of product discovery. Like they did workshops every week, and we would be interviewing potential partners or potential customers. And so that whole process was very informative. It was very fast. It was like, it's pitch day. We had like a panel of 6 VCs we had to pitch to, and they were like, don't expect to get any funding. Like, you guys are way too early. Some people were pretty far along, actually.
Oh, okay.
Team that won,
team that interviewed Julene had heard our podcast, and they were like, hey, you work at Tesla. We're trying to do a battery startup.
Nice.
What was it?
They were trying to use the IRA to like optimize different companies' supply chains. So basically like US made products and figuring out like where they could add value to the other companies focused on like EVs and lithium ion batteries. But the CEO of the group, he worked in like battery technology. So that's where he was focused.
Nice.
It was really cool. I was like, please do start this company and hire me in like 2 years.
That's cool.
It was very cool.
Yeah, we it's funny. It's like this small community.
Yeah.
Even though the even weekend cohorts, they're like 400 people. The full time is like 400 people. But I think the ones that are interested in these things, it's much smaller. And so you can actually meet these people, and they all know each other, right? It's a very cool community to be a part of.
Yeah, and it's just an instant connection, right? You say you're from Haas, and I could even talk to people at my work who have been at Haas, and once I said I'm at Haas, they're like, okay, let's go for a coffee. So it's like kind of a really good connection. Yeah,
no, I was going to say, I think we have our new VPs of alumni relations. They said there's something like 50,000 Haas alumni now who are on like the Haas LinkedIn page. Yeah, so it's a tremendous network for sure.
Yeah. I think a week after our orientation last year, I was walking around North Beach, just getting pizza with my wife, and somebody said something, Haas executive program. And then I was like, what's going on? And then they were like, hey, what class are you, whatever? It's like, we graduated in 2018.
Really?
They're like walking their dog or something, right? And I was like, these guys live in North Beach. This is a good sign. Yeah. Maybe there's a good ROI on this degree.
Exactly. Yeah, we saw it, right? It's like 4 million for sure.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, small network. I think there's a lot of positivity around it, but like when we're here physically, it's like I'm drained. Like I'm sure you're all tired.
Yeah.
That's when we get the best content.
You're too delirious to hold back.
That's right. Maybe a couple of beers as well. So.
Yeah, that's our cue. Any other questions or comments from you? Anything you want to bring up?
No, I think nothing specifically, but I'm glad that you're doing this. I think it's a good forum. And I have watched some of your other episodes as well, and they're really nice. And I feel that, this is something that we'll continuously look back to, like even after like few years, and
Yeah.
we'll see, oh, wow. And then, it's kind of a bond that you'll share for life. So really appreciate you guys for doing this. And I'm glad that I could tell my perspective, and hopefully it helps others in their journey.
Awesome.
Oh, my favorite last question.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to ask Chrissy.
Oh, really? Okay, well, yeah. It's who do you want to see next on the podcast? And give us a little tidbit why.
So, okay, I would say maybe Stephanie D, if she's not already on.
She
Sorry.
is.
She is,
I
yeah.
recorded hers in block 3.
Oh, okay.
Not yet released,
Oh,
but
sorry. I
yeah.
need to edit that, yeah.
Because, I was thinking about her because she is in like a completely different space.
Yeah.
I would like to hear about that space and how they make
Stay tuned.
decisions.
It's marketing, though, right? She's
Wait.
in marketing? Stephanie T?
She manages a business.
She
unit,
manages, yeah.
like the merchandising of. So
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
like-
yeah. She did ask me about logistics one time. She's like, I need to figure out how to customs clear this shipment. I was like, what are you doing?
everything. She does everything.
Yeah.
And she's expanding, so I wanted to hear what her thoughts were, and my wife really liked the handbags too.